Welcome back to the Speculative Podcast. I'm Joe here with James. This is part 3 of our discussion of short stories that take place before Leviathan Wakes, and we're ending with the Churn, which I enjoyed, but James did not. We'll get into that. But this is actually technically not even a short story. It's classified as a novella due to its length. But do you want to discuss the surprise ending first, or do you want to save it?
That's your call. I'm just gonna say, fuck the story.
Well, it was like it's like a gangster story. It's our first glimpse. Well, in the reading order that we're doing, the first glimpse of Earth during this time period. Baltimore sounds like Baltimore. Doesn't sound like it changed much. I guess there's more flooding and stuff like that.
Sounds. I mean, we're actively dealing with that now. Maybe not in Baltimore, but it'll be soon.
And this is the first time I'm hearing, apparently, people have a basic income, which is not that great, but apparently people are supplied with enough that they can live off of without, I guess if you want more, you have to get a job, but apparently that's very hard, so a lot of people have turned to crime, which is what this focuses on. There's a Baltimore gangster, what's his name, Burton?
Yep.
Head of a mob, essentially, in the future, just to get, a little bit more than what Basic has to offer. And it starts off with Eric and one of his childhood friends, Timmy, which we'll get to who that is later, but Timmy's a teenager, and it starts off with basically him being reprimanded for flat out just killing somebody.
Yep. You did what?
Yeah. Well, he said there was nothing else you could get out of him, so I just killed him.
So I got the thing I could get out of him. People will pay you on time.
Yeah.
You ain't getting money, so you're gonna get some fear.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about Timmy? If it makes it easier, we'll just reveal it. Timmy turns out to be Amos Burton from Leviathan Wakes. I totally messed that up. So, Timmy turns out to be Amos Burton, the Amos Burton that we know and love from Leviathan Wakes. And apparently this altered your thoughts on the character a bit?
Yep.
In what way? Not as much mystery surrounding him?
I am fond. He's my second favorite character in Leviathan Wakes. So, ultimately, what this does for me is it doesn't... He seems like in a lot of ways, it doesn't alter his character, because he's still somewhat independent, but not really. You got the scene in there where he's talking to whatever the fuck her name is, the old lady.
Yeah.
Which was awkward as fuck.
His surrogate mother / lover.
Yeah. Ugh. He doesn't understand the difference between being sick or having some kind of anxiety. That alters, like, that conversation changes the character for me a little bit. in the way that I thought Amos. Like, I felt through Leviathan Wakes, like, obviously he's got anxiety, but he's on top of his shit. He's very competent, very on top of his shit. And so this humanizes him a little bit more. So it's a flaw in his character. He feels anxiety, but he doesn't understand what it is. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever.
The common theme with these humanizing characters that were a little bit less than human when we were first introduced to them.
Sure, but I didn't appreciate it because I liked Amos without this background more. He just felt. I got the vibe from the character that he was just. Again, he was.
Saw some shit.
In the same way that Naomi is on top of her shit. He felt a lot like that. Now, not so much. He just doesn't talk about it.
Well, I mean, he seemed pretty on top of his shit.
But he also was
for certain things, but not everything.
Completely detached. Like, they made him a robot.
In the short story, or in the novella, or in the...
Yes. In Churn, they made him a fucking robot.
I mean, in the beginning he was, but then... But I mean, that's how he operated. Just, yes, sir, I'll take care of that. For you.
Okay.
So... I mean, like I said...
banged his mom like a robot.
It's not his mother, it's...
May as well be.
And I don't even know, like, was there even sexual pleasure for it? Because, like, basically
No! That's my point!
When they were describing her, she basically was, like, just doing it routinely, like you would take your shoes off when you got home from work. But...
Even people who don't like each other and do that generally at least enjoy the act of it. But not these two. They're just doing it because people do. Somewhere for a reason, but who knows what. It made him a robot.
To feel something, to feel anything.
And it didn't work!
Well, I mean, obviously, I enjoyed the story probably the most of the three, but not because
this one is the opposite of the first one for me, in that I don't like this story, but not for the same reasons, because obviously this is pertinent to a very specific character.
Yeah,
and this one is in the same vein though, where if I had read this, and I had finished it and it didn't tie in, I'd be like, why the fuck did I waste my time on that? Oh, to give me a glimpse of the way Earth is. Well, that could be part of the story. I didn't need a separate short story for it, but whatever.
Yeah, this was a longer time commitment.
Well, yeah.
For sure.
It's like double. It's like almost exactly double.
Yeah.
Page count, I think, was a little less than double? Maybe like 10 pages less than double?
Yeah.
But more so... This is a story I could have enjoyed outside of the context of its fans, whereas the Drive or whatever.
Well, yeah, we'll get that question right away. Is this something that you would recommend reading prior to, or
no?
Okay, so yeah, because it sort of alters.
I just wouldn't recommend it. Just fucking ignore it.
You don't want
I don't.
You want Amos to have, like, it's sort of the same way people feel about the Solo movie, where they don't really like the more mystery of Han Solo's past, the better. Similar situation. I don't think it's
necessary. It doesn't do anything for his character for me. If anything, it was an attempt to humanize and also roboticize a character that I thought was in a good place already.
Well, I mean, he is in a good place by the time we get to Leviathan Wakes. This is just his earlier struggles that he had to overcome.
"3 days worth of struggle does not a character make." It wasn't 3 days. It was like, what, 3 weeks maybe?
I mean, it felt like quite a long time.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't more than a month. It definitely wasn't more than a month. I know it was at least a week and a half, but not more than a month. But it also, like, just his knowledge is impressive from a Leviathan Wakes standpoint. He's a really intelligent, put together, on top of his shit, mechanic, engineer.
Yeah, I don't feel like this takes that away, though.
I just don't think the need was there to attempt to humanize him. I feel like he was fine. I didn't feel like he was detached from reality as it was. Like, he was fine. And this just felt like a needless way to garner support for him as a character. At least for me, it was unnecessary. And I spend most of the story going, how the fuck does this even matter? Why do I care? And then the very, last 2 pages or so? Like, oh, Amos Burton, you better catch your shuttle. Wait, what?
Yeah, I did the same thing too. I was like, wait, is he gonna run into the real Amos? Oh, this is Amos Burton.
And then it's like, okay, cool, I guess.
Named after the guy that he murdered in cold blood at the end of the story.
Well, the Burton part is, yeah.
But yeah, so the book's novella is called The Churn, which is.
But this unlike Drive, I would have read this solo and been okay with it. Like, as a novella, I'm fine with it. I just don't like the way it tied into his character.
Yeah. So yes, The Churn is basically the phrasing that they use for the periodic points in time when the cops start cracking down on crime. And then this, basically they have people that just routinely come to expect it, like people preparing for a hurricane.
Yeah.
I guess it essentially follow. I mean, Eric's there for a little bit. He's a cripple. Having a tough time being a part of this syndicate.
Well, he's a tech guy.
Yeah, and I guess there's a crime scene, I guess, and his DNA is left, or at least it's.
He was going to create a fake
implied
identity for someone that they heavily implied was going to be pimped out by Burton's outfit.
Yeah.
And instead, when they went to crack down on one of Burton's lieutenants, they caught everyone up in it. And she sold him out. When she got caught, she sold him out. And then they fled and left his computer behind, his laptop behind. So all his document creating materials were left behind where the police could get it. And so the DNA is his DNA on it, but they also know what those devices are used for. So they would then look for him, and then he could sell Burton. Was the dilemma they created for the story.
Yeah, well, like I said, he's not on record because he's unidentified. Like, he's basically one of the birds that weren't logged, which makes Baltimore even more depressing than current Baltimore. So,
They're logging everybody?
well, no, that there's people that just born into poverty or just not even, you don't even have an identity. As well as Amos doesn't have that identity when he's born, because essentially just born illegitimately. Being the wanting to be like, the old reliable, he basically just agrees to do things for Burton, just to keep on his good side. And I guess killing Eric was basically top of the priority. And Burton was doing that too as a way to, test his merit, essentially. So I guess that's the main point is his surrogate mother essentially talks him out of doing that. What's her name?
Again,
Lydia?
Lydia, yeah. It makes him robotic, though, because he was going to do it. He was just going to, yes, sir, and robotic his way through it. Yes, sir, you told me to kill him, so I'm going to do it, because that's the job now. And it took somebody else to talk him into being a decent person. And so I feel like that takes away from the Amos character that I got from Leviathan Wakes, who will also do the job. But he flat out, in Leviathan Wakes, at one point, he's like, I'm not cut out to be the captain. I'm not cut out to make those kinds of decisions. Like, he's more aware and in tune with himself. And I feel like this story takes away from that.
You don't think his cat.
Okay,
you don't feel like it's an arc.
That from this, sure, but it just didn't. Maybe this is one where I would say then ultimately read it first. Maybe I'll change my stance on that. Read it first, and then you get a taste of Amos before Leviathan Wakes, and so it feels more like a growth arc. For me, it was more like, oh, it was a flashback, and it feels regressive as a character. I don't know. Maybe that's my problem.
Well, heavily assuming that Amos is going to be in Caliban's War.
He fucking better.
They
took Miller from me, probably, but maybe not. They took Miller from me. You take my Amos, and I'm done with the series.
No, I just have a feeling that he's there to stay. But
yeah, I really feel
as
like and Holden and Naomi are pretty safe. The three of them feel pretty safe.
Yeah. So will this as we're reading Caliban's War, assuming that he's in Caliban's War, which he will be.
Actually, and Fred feels pretty safe too.
Yeah, maybe. But
you're not convinced.
I'm not convinced. Will this change how you read him and feel about him next time, or are you going to stubbornly hold your affections for him?
Like, I can't unread this, so I would have to say yes.
I mean, obviously it didn't affect him being one of your favorite characters because you are still affectionate for that character despite having read this. So I don't know if it's really fair to say if it changed your opinion or not.
I don't think there's a way for it to not change my opinion. Like, I have to take his character into account as a whole. I still like his character. I just think this was unnecessary to add to it.
I mean, like I said before, the authors flat out admit that all these stories are unnecessary and they're just things that they did.
Yeah, but
on the side.
Sure.
They basically, I think this collection starts off with saying that it was never their intention to have any expanse short stories, let alone a short story collection. So it was just sort of, I think a lot of them were maybe them writing for themselves so that they could formulate how the character would respond to future events and go by that. But yeah, so Eric's GAC, as they call it, is retrieved. Burton orders Amos / Timmy to kill him.
Tiny.
Yeah, tiny, and they don't even
called Tiny more than once in my life. I appreciate that one.
You've been called that before?
Yeah, for the same exact reason. I'm not.
For irony?
Yeah, I'm not I'm not the physical masterpiece they play him out to be, but I'm not a small individual, and so same overall reason for it.
So essentially, like I said, ordered to kill him. Oh yeah, this is where I was going with it. So basically, it can't even be left up for interpretation.
Oh yeah, he was totally gonna do it.
Yeah, because like he brought back only 2 meals.
Yeah, well, and he started to walk in there. He's like, "I'll be right back," and he's gonna kill him while he's asleep.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was totally going to do it. So he can't even retrospectively claim that he didn't.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's
like that itself.
It's in.
That doesn't fit with the character as I had him pegged in Leviathan Wakes, and so I didn't really.
Well, much like Fred Johnson, he had a massive change to what he grew up being to what he is now. Now being.
Really changed all that much.
I mean, he questions everything now. He didn't before. Amos apparently same thing now. So maybe there's a correlation there.
I think the difference in Fred is that he has made it so that he is the upper tier of power.
Well, yeah, different direction. Yeah, but I think similar path.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I don't think Fred changed so much. He is just, now he is the one giving the orders instead of the one taking the orders. So that's ultimately the big change you get out of Fred.
I mean, Fred still gave orders.
Yeah, but he still took orders and then gave orders to other people. Like, he's making the ultimate decisions now. He's working as part of a group as an equal kind of. Like, obviously, the way they portray the OPA council, there's not really equals there. There's a power dynamic where they're all peers of a sort, but he's in that group now, so he's not taking orders from people. So I think that's the difference you get in Fred Johnson. His character didn't change so much. Where he is in the power structure does. I feel like Amos's character definitely changes.
Yeah, I see that. I guess.
You don't have to agree with me. I'm more than capable of being wrong, and it's all opinion.
Well, no. I mean, it's clearly a different.
And you like the story, whereas I.
Like I said, it's clearly a different path, but like I said, I was arguing that it was a simpler one.
Like until Lydia says don't kill him, and then he realizes, okay, well, I could kill Burton instead, and that's the only way to stop my friend from being hunted. Like, even up to that point, he was never gonna be a mechanic. He was just gonna do dirty work for people. And he was just going to keep on doing dirty work for people. Like, the concept of being an engineer wasn't even in his growth trajectory. It only happens because he's robotic. And just
well, that's what I'm saying.
Unfeelingly murders people. He doesn't have emotion. And the one time you get where he does have emotion of a sort, someone else has to explain to him, oh, that's emotion. How? That's not. What?
Well, I mean, that's the turning point for his.
It's a robot. It's still a robot. What am I experiencing? Well, Mr. Robot, that's what humans call emotion.
Well, yeah, Lydia. What I was saying is Lydia to Amos Burton is like, Anderson Dawes to Fred Johnson, where again, they were headed for a certain path, and it was that one individual. So they didn't make the decision on their own. Somebody inspired them to change their path.
But so the thing though is, like, I don't think that's a change to Fred's character. I think Dawes just gave him an opportunity to continue being the same person in a non-self-destructive way, where he can make amends for a thing that he feels like he made a mistake. I don't think Amos feels like he made a mistake at all. He just changed his trajectory happenstance because his friend set the documents up so that he could get off world. Like it's all like there's like Fred wanted to make amends. I don't think Amos never thought he did anything wrong or anything. He just did something. So like.
Well, I mean,
And again,
I don't know if that was the motivation to get off world. That was established after he spared Eric's life.
It was. Well, I mean, it was established after he killed Burton.
Yeah, which was probably the most brutal murder I've seen in this entire series. So thus far,
really, you think so?
what was worse?
Probably Burton's bodyguard. He popped his eye out and then shot him in the face point blank with a shotgun.
Burton's was pretty bad.
Well, Burton just got punched in the middle of the face over and over and over again. Until he got so dumb that he kind of liked it.
Yeah, he was riding that high for sure. But yeah,
no, man. Like brutal deaths. That crew member of Julie's that they throw out the airlock. I refuse to believe that the airlock is a kind death.
Maybe. I mean, but it's also. I think it's pretty instant, isn't it?
So what about all the civilians on Eros that they threw in the radiation chambers? That's kind of brutal. You just melt.
All right, fine. Clearly, I didn't think that through. But
I mean, I will give you that it's not a fun death, but the most brutal.
well, you just proved it was a peaceful death. Apparently, a peaceful face punching. But yeah. They're hiding. I think the hiding place that they had two particularly highlights just the shit state that the city's in, because like basically there's flooding to the point where there's islands out, and I guess would be the Chesapeake.
There are islands in the Chesapeake anyway.
I know, but like that close to the city is.
But that also tells you a lot about it.
There's no island. There's no buildings on those islands. There is a building on this island, which means it wasn't an island before, is the impression that I got from that.
They got buildings on islands in the Chesapeake now. They got a fort on an island in the Chesapeake.
I know that, but I'm talking about like, like this seemed like it was abandoned because of flooding.
I mean, maybe, but
So, yeah.
Yeah, you're making me do that too.
Yeah. But, yeah, and then he assumes the moniker Amos, which, the surprise ending.
I just need...
Timmy becomes Amos Burton, eventually becomes good-hearted, but he's also, semi...
I don't think he's good-hearted.
Psycho/sociopathic.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it does sort of explain why. I mean, his character, now that I'm thinking about it in retrospect, his character in Leviathan Wakes does demonstrate, teetering on that edge of being good-hearted, but then also being sociopathic.
I don't think he's good-hearted. He always felt to me more like loyal to his group, where he belongs. I don't necessarily. Yeah. He never felt good-hearted to me. But I mean, I could see.
I mean, that's a good-hearted trait. Wouldn't you agree?
Blind loyalty? No.
No,
Again,
not blind loyalty for the sake of it. Blind loyalty. I mean, I don't know if it's blind loyalty. I think it's just unwavering loyalty. I wouldn't say it's blind. He has reasons for admiring Holden.
yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, I don't know how much more I have on the subject. Like I said, I enjoyed it the most, I guess, because it just seemed more like space Goodfellas to
It
me.
wasn't in space.
All right, futuristic Goodfellas.
Where did Goodfellas happen? Was that in Baltimore? No. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, and it was interesting. Baltimore, of all places, not New York. Baltimore doesn't get much literary representation. At least, or it may, but nothing in what I've read.
The only thing I can really think of out of Baltimore that stands out to me is that story about that guy who cut someone's heart out and buried them in the floor. So,
So we're keeping up the theme apparently. So yeah, so this would be does that still stand? You've changed your mind. You would recommend reading this prior
if you read it,
to Leviathan Wakes.
Yeah, so I would either say don't read it or read it first. Yes.
Cool. And it's kind of a shame. I kind of wish. I don't think we'll get it, but I kind of wish the story went a little bit further and we got to at least see him meeting Holden. But
So I wish it went a little bit further and we had a little bit more on what went on with Eric and.
well, I mean, Eric gave him that identity, so
Yeah,
obviously
so the big thing there
they made
was
up.
Eric always wanted to get off world, whereas Amos didn't give a shit. Wasn't a priority. Didn't care. What the fuck would I do out there? Eric is the one that wanted to get off world. Like that is what they were talking about when this shit broke for them. Right.
Yeah.
So does Eric eventually go, well, what the fuck else am I going to do now? May as well get off world too?
Yeah, it makes me wonder if we'll see.
We won't see the woman again. Hands down, we won't. And I bet we don't see Eric again. I don't think it matters.
I'm thinking we might see Eric again, is what I was thinking.
It'd be interesting. I would appreciate that. But
I mean, Lydia, we might see her again too. I don't know.
she was already in like her late 50s, wasn't she?
Yeah, but they say Amos is a teenager here. Like, I'm assuming like 18, 19 if he's overpowering people.
Yeah, and he's banging his senior citizen grandmother.
Yeah, but he's what? How old is he in Leviathan Wakes? I get the impression
30s?
he's like, yeah, I'm getting early 30s. So that's 10 years.
Early 30s?
Maybe. I mean, even so, like, she's 50, late 50s. She would be mid 70s. You don't think that's possible for someone? I guess if her experience, maybe not, but
remember again that Baltimore is the reality for people on Earth, not in the station. So does she make it to 70? Survive? I doubt it.
yeah. Well, that's if she remained in Baltimore.
Yeah, well, what's she gonna do elsewhere? Part of the reason that Baltimore was good for her was that she was the side piece for a mob boss at some point, right? So he took care of her, even though he wasn't sleeping with her anymore. He took care of her. That was his thing. So that goes away. So she doesn't have a trade. She doesn't have a skill. Now she doesn't have a place to live. She don't have people that know her.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It wouldn't be interesting at all.
She's toast.
To bring her back.
She's done.
But I think it would be interesting to bring back Eric.
It'd be interesting to bring back Eric and see
how he's progressed.
And whether or not him and Amos play off of each other at all. Or
yeah.
recognize each other. And if he gets his arm and leg repaired, like they said he could have.
Could be.
Spacers can regrow that shit.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, is he secretly somebody we already know?
No, okay.
Maybe. I don't know. Or, like I said, maybe he'll show up. We'll see. Yeah. Any final thoughts?
That basically covered it all.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you weren't as much of a fan. I enjoyed it, but like I said, I think
I don't think it was a bad story. I just didn't like it in the context of the way it applied to Leviathan Wakes. I don't think it was a bad story, though. Like, I thought Drive was a bad story. I didn't care in any way. It didn't do anything for me. This wasn't a bad story. It was an interesting story. I just don't like the way it applies to what we're reading.
Well, we'll see. I'm actually going to hold this and we'll revisit how you feel about Churn after we've read Caliban War and see where we see Amos again now that we've read
that's right.
this. So we'll revisit this. But yeah. So for the next time, we will dive into book 2 in the series, Caliban's War. And we're going to have 4 casts on that. And the first cast will be the first quarter of the story.